I think leg kicks are very important for anybody, especially so let's use it in Jan's instance, right? Izzy's predicated on movement and angles, and how do you want to slow movement and angles down? You chop down the lead legs, inside, outside, things of that sort. So I think leg kicks are imperative for both parties, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, I think that's a great resource for Jan is to be able to try to chop that leg. Now you're looking at a guy who's coming up a weight class, and you're talking about a heavier puncher, heavier kicker. I think wearing on that lead leg is a great idea, especially when you're talking about a 5-round fight. So we call that in our gym, we call it money in the bank. You want to try to just body shots and leg kicks are very important when you have a 5-round fight. So I think leg kicks will be very important for him.
And so what would some other, because I mentioned to you on our Instagram, I talked to Mark Montoya yesterday. He talked about his strategy, and his idea would be, if he was coaching him, he would try to keep him in that mid to short range, away from getting in a long range fight with Izzy, which would be what he would prefer. Also, just as he put it, don't fight him across the entire cage. Make it a fight in a triangle within that cage.
That's funny. That's why Mark's my boy. That was exactly what I would say. Is I call it a pizza pie, right? So you want to cut the cage off into maybe 2/3, or fight him in 1/3 of that cage. So you want to dictate center control, and you want to kind of funnel him into what we call the choke points, or the 2 pillars of the cage posts, right? So you want to try to funnel him into those choke points and make the fight in that phone booth, if you will. So making sure that you keep center octagon is very important, and then making him move to those back corner posts or those choke points where you can set up a lot of your hooks. So we call them Frasers. If we throw a right hand down the middle out of orthodox stance, we'd roll that right hand under into a right hook. So we call them a Fraser step. And then you can set traps that way. You make a guy drift away from your power, and then you can set up your southpaw overhand. You can do that at a southpaw as well. You throw a cross to that southpaw stance. You'd roll your left hook in and then throw a right overhand. So a lot of that does is sets the traps and makes the guy feel like he can exit in a certain way off the cage side. And then all the while, you're just really setting a trap into your power hand side.
Now, I'm glad that you both of your coaches, brilliant minds, are similar. So I'll kind of go in a different direction, because since same thing in that. Because a lot of people, when they watch this, the people that don't know, aren't experts like you and Mark and all these fighters and stuff like that, they'll see someone say, oh, he's got to cut off the cage. Oh, he's not doing it. Why isn't he? The announcers will question, oh, why isn't he or she cutting off the cage? What are the specifics in a layman's term, without doing it in person kind of thing? How does one cut off the cage? How do you do effectively? And how does someone avoid, getting cut off and not allowing a person to do that?
So I like to try to tell my fighters, if you think about, let's say if we're standing orthodox, and I'll kind of come back to this point, and this is why I feel at this day and age of MMA, it's imperative that you're able to strike out of both stances. You should be able to strike out of both stances because of the traps that you're able to set by cutting off the cage. But the way I like to describe it to my fighters is, if you thought about, in geometry, we had a compass, right? And you put that pin in the ground, right? And then you drew a circle. So I'm able to really dictate the cage cut off with that right foot pinned in the ground, and I'm able to step left, and then I can step right. I can keep a center point in the mat, but all the while staying in front of you. Now what happens is I remove that center foot, and I start coming forward, and you keep scooting off to my lead hand side, getting around my jab hand on my lead hand side. Then all of a sudden, I have to take a hard step to my left and try to cut you off again. That's where you start seeing guys, we use the word chase. They're starting to chase you. So a good point of reference to that exact example would be Stipe Miocic versus Fabricio Verdum. Fabricio Verdum ran forward, and then Stipe hard exit to his right, got Verdum to chase him, and what did Stipe do? He plant crossed and knocked him out. So all the while, all you would have to do if you're Verdum is you would open your left foot out at a 45-degree angle and try to get your lead foot behind his rear shoulder, and that's how you want to try to cut guys off. So the cutting off part is an art. Thank God I had a guy like Randy Couture teach me that at a young age, and he always told me, he's like, look, kid, the octagon control is an art that's been lost and not like he goes, you think jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, wrestling, he goes, cage control is the art. That is an art that doesn't get looked at enough.
How big of a deal is it to have the speed advantage in a fight and know how to expertly use it? Not just in strikes per se, but footwork like Israel can show in both kind of ways. Everyone knows, like the saying, oh, speed kills. Is it an attribute that can really nullify someone that has a power game and a wrestling game like Jan does?
100%, because you think about the 5-round fight and you're able to be dictated off of speed, not predicated on power. You're going to have better energy systems throughout the 5 rounds, and you're able to stay relevant throughout the entire fight when you're more predicated on movement and speed. So again, like we were talking earlier, so some of the things that Jan's going to have to look to do is probably work his lead leg and work this guy's body. Moreover, I think Jan should incorporate some sort of wrestling game just to stay heavy and make this guy pummel and sag on him. And that's going to try to start negating some of that speed, right? When you make a guy work and pummel and work on get-ups and get in and get out. Now, Israel, I think, has 100% takedown efficiency in the UFC. But not only that, like when you just clinch with the guy and you make him dig underhooks and you make him work in dirty box and pummel and re-pummel and then overhook and then underhook, that's the kind of where you chip away at these guys that are a little lighter in stature and predicated on speed.